I'm just gonna say it right here, right now at the beginning. If you like Sonic and the Black Knight, stop watching this review and go play it instead. Have you left yet? No? Well, I warned you. Let's get started. The story starts off with a young wizard girl named Merlina who is trying to escape from a knight in shining armor. There's irony for you. The knight summons a monster army to trap her, and in her desperate attempt to escape, she calls forth for a Knight of the Wind, who turns out to be Sonic with 2 chili dogs. Oh great, those have now gone canon. Sonic defeats all the enemies without even breaking a sweat, and is about to take on the head knight when Merlina pulls him away and escapes. Okay, why she didn't do that in the first place, I have no idea. You find out that the knight is King Arthur, who has become corrupted and calls forth his Knights of the Round Table to go hunt down Sonic and Merlina. You know what? I really don't care what they're called in the game. That's Shadow, that's Knuckles, that's Blaze, that's Tails, that's Amy, that's Sonic, that's a puff of smoke, and that's something I'm not going to say in front of a younger audience. Oh, and Eggman is nowhere to be found in the plot. Merlina explains to Sonic that King Arthur cannot be harmed as long as he has a special scabbard, so they must find a way to weaken its power. They seek out a legendary sword called Caliburn, who begins to talk, and a new conflict comes from it. Sonic doesn't get along with the sword doesn't get along with Sonic. It feels like that for the gameplay for me.
Use this dang sword!
And as predictable as it is, they get along later on. That's really all I'm going to say about the story, except that the plot twist is actually pretty decent, but the ending is so bad it quotes itself. That's the lamest excuse I've ever heard. If you've played Secret Rings, you'll be familiar with the gameplay. For a brief catch-up, Sonic can only move left, right, forward, and backward. However, this time you do not use the Wii Remote on its side. You use the nunchuck, and use the control stick to move Sonic left, right, forward, and back. To keep Sonic constantly moving, you have to press forward. You can use the Z button to block, the A button to jump, tap it again to perform a homing attack, which has now become completely useless, move the Wii Remote around to swing the sword, and use the B button for the Soul Surge once you've acquired the ability. The Soul Surge allows Sonic to run really fast, and once you catch up to an enemy, everything slows down for you to time your hit. If you time it to when your sword glows, you'll get more time to use the Soul Surge. If not, you just get the hit. The levels are still point A to point B, but some levels will require you to do something else before you're allowed to complete the level, such as slaying a dragon, defeat a certain amount of enemies, or give rings to villagers. In my honest opinion, that part is pretty stupid, and should not have been implemented. All it does is slow down the game. After each level you'll be graded. Based on what though, I have no idea. You'll also gain some experience, which then you'll be able to level up your knight status, as well as collectible items that you can then take to Tails, who will make more items out of. However, I never really used Tails that much, especially since you can only have 2 items attached. And unlike in the Secret Rings where you can constantly increase your speed and other various abilities, here you never really feel a difference. In between certain levels you have to fight other knights, mainly Shadow, Knuckles, Blaze, and King Arthur. The fights are pretty easy. Just wait for an opening, keep slashing, block, and time your hit just right to those certain parts. So why was I being so negative at the beginning? Well, that's what I'm about to cover next. So many things to go over, I don't even know where to begin. I guess I'll start with the controls. First off, I do not actually like moving Sonic left and right with the control stick, because sometimes to get him all the way to the left or the right, he'll actually stop to move to the left and the right. In this style of gameplay where Sonic is constantly on rails, I actually prefer tilting the Wii Remote left and right in order to move him. It felt like a fresh and brand new approach. Not to mention that sometimes it just feels like I'm pushing up against an invisible wall that is gradually pushing away. The sword combat could have used work. In fact, it really could have used a lot of work. It doesn't matter where you swing the sword, it's going to register it as an attack. I was moving my arm around in a circle and it was still registering as an attack. There are instances where you have to swing the sword at a specific time, but it doesn't matter where you swing it. Which leads me to believe it is waggle motion. If it mattered where you swung it, like, say, if it had on-screen indications such as slash here, slash there, then it would have been interesting and engaging. For a better example, play the Star Wars Trilogy arcade game. That bonus stage where you had to have a lightsaber battle with Darth Vader and it told you where to move the control stick in order to make you defend or attack? That's what I would have liked to have seen here. If you believe I'm being unfair because I'm comparing a Sonic game to a Star Wars game, it's not, because they were both made by Sega. Later on in the game you're able to play as Shadow, Knuckles, and Blaze. Shadow and Blaze play nearly identical to Sonic, but there's really no point in playing as them unless you really like that character. Knuckles was actually my favorite because he could glide over the countless hordes of enemies. For me, this was more fun than actually fighting them. It was just kinda sad that you could only play as them in a couple of levels. Same with Shadow and Blaze. Next up, the stage designs. And I gotta be honest, these are some of the worst 3D Sonic stages I have seen in the franchise. They lack two very important things. I'll give you a hint, they both start with a C. Give up? It's called creativity and challenge. Within the first couple of levels, it feels like the only obstacle in your way are the enemies. The countless hordes of enemies that pop up out of nowhere. Don't believe me? Well, take this level for example. If there were no enemies, you would run straight through the level without anything in your way. How boring would that be? Obstacles like this one are pretty pathetic because even if you get hit, it doesn't really matter. The only obstacle that actually irritated me was this one, but only because I was too impatient to actually time my jump. I've actually heard a lot of people complain about this part of the game, but to be honest, I just kept jumping over those enemies and ignoring them so I wouldn't have to fall to my death. Speaking of enemies, it really doesn't matter how you handle them. Most of the time I just kept using the jump and slash attack, which don't be fooled by that cutscene. It doesn't go that far or last that long. Except when I actually pulled this off, but only because I was swinging the Wii remote around like my arm was on fire. Most of the extra missions I didn't even bother to play because they just weren't fun, like this one, or the one where you had to go through the cavern and not touch any of the villagers. The game is only 2 to 4 hours long, so if you paid $50, you got ripped off. If you paid $30, you still got ripped off. I used a free rental on this game and still feel like I wasted money. The multiplayer mode is slow and pathetic. The mode where you could trade items with friends around the world didn't really interest me that much. The only special feature in this game that's actually worth noting is the fan artwork they put in the game. If yours is in here, I will give you the right to call this the best game of all time. I won't agree with you, but I'll give you that right. One more thing that really bugs me is this level. It's not the level itself, it's this idea I keep getting from this level. To me, it looks like a Wild West setting. And what if that's the next entry in the storybook series? What, they're gonna give Sonic a cowboy hat, make him ride a horse, and give him 6 shooters? If Sega ever comes out with something like that, don't ask me to review it, let alone play it. I don't care how cool Sega would make the trailer look. It may have sounded like I completely hate this game, but there are a few things I actually did kind of like. I like the Soul Surge, the graphics were good, the CGI cutscenes were well made, especially that crow. Man, that is the most impressive looking realistic crow I've seen in a CGI cutscene. At first I really couldn't hear the music in the game because I was hearing this, but when I went to go listen to it in the specials, it was actually pretty good, especially the songs with lyrics. And I also really liked the boss fights with King Arthur, and the final boss fight, especially with the song With Me. That was the one part about the gameplay I actually liked the most. The controls were still waggle, and I could 5-star it in less than a minute, but I replayed it more than I replayed anything in Shadow the Hedgehog. All that being said, it really just looks like Sega hasn't really put much effort or interest in the storybook series, and if this is how they're going to start to treat it, then I hope the next one is Sonic and Fahrenheit 451. If you don't get that joke, look it up. I honestly believe they should have delayed this game, added Wii Motion Plus, made the combat a lot more engaging and intriguing, add in some extra levels, and put some more thought into the other levels. I can't honestly give a reason as to why you would want to buy it unless you really like this game, or if you're just trying to add it to your collection. Once again, I would like to remind you that no critic has the right to tell you what you can and cannot like. So if you like Sonic and the Black Knight for whatever reason, I'm fine with that. Just don't try to get me to like it, because I've already explained why I don't. I'm just here to give out my point of view on it. For those of you who want to lash out at me for my opinions, Sonic has a message for you.
Give me a break! What's up with all this drama?
And that's coming straight from Sonic himself. A 2 out of 5, a rental for some, a pass for everyone else.